మరి ఇంత పెద్ద దేశంలో జరగరానిది జరిగితే, అనుకోనిది సంభవిస్తే అప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలి? ఎవరి తలుపు తట్టాలి? ఆ ఆపద సమయంలో ఎవరు అండగా నిలబడతారు? ఇలాంటి ప్రశ్నలన్నింటికీ ఒకే ఒక్క సమాధానం: ఉత్తర అమెరికా తెలుగు సంఘం నాట్స్.
భాషే రమ్యం, సేవే గమ్యం అని అది కేవలం నినాదంగా కాకుండా, మాటల్లో కాకుండా వాళ్ళ చేతల్లో కూడా చేసి చూపిస్తున్న సంస్థ నాట్స్.
2009లో కేవలం 200 మందితో ప్రారంభమైన నాట్స్ అమెరికాలో తొలిసారిగా తెలుగువారి కోసం ఒక హెల్ప్ లైన్ ఏర్పాటు చేసి సేవే గమ్యం అంటూ ముందడుగు వేసింది.
నాట్స్ ప్రతిష్టను పెంచడంలో నాట్స్ హెల్ప్ లైన్ పాత్ర ఎంతో కీలకం. అలాంటి హెల్ప్ లైన్ తెలుగు వారికి చేరువ చేయడంలో తొలి దశలో నా సాయి శక్తిలా కృషి చేశానని చెప్పుకోవడం నాకెంతో గర్వకారణంగా ఉంది.
ఉచిత వైద్య శిబిరాలతో అమెరికాలో తెలుగువారి ఆత్మీయ నేస్తమైంది.
నాట్స్ వాళ్ళు ఫ్రీ మెడికల్ క్యాంప్ పెట్టారు. వాళ్ళు పెట్టడం వల్ల నేను ఇక్కడికి వచ్చి చెకప్ చేయించుకున్నాను. షుగర్ టెస్టింగ్ మిషన్ కూడా ఫ్రీగా ఇచ్చారు.
హెల్త్ క్యాంప్స్ మేము స్టార్ట్ చేసాం. ముందు అందరూ హెల్త్ క్యాంప్స్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఇప్పుడు అది మంచిది.
తెలుగు వారికి అనుకోని ప్రమాదాలు సంభవించిన, జరగరానిది జరిగి మృత్యువుతో పోరాడుతున్న వెంటనే నాట్స్ అప్రమత్తమవుతుంది. బాధితులకు కొండంత అండగా నిలబడుతోంది. అవెనెల్ అగ్ని ప్రమాదంలో సర్వం కోల్పోయిన తెలుగు వారిని ఆదుకుంది. బేబీ హర్షిత, అర్చనా సిస్టర్స్, లక్ష్మణ్ దూసా, అభినయ్ రెడ్డి, గోపి లింగంగుట్ల, సాయి దొండపాటి, విష్ణు పుప్పాల, మధు మాదల, ఇలా చెప్పుకుంటూ పోతే ఎందరో బాధిత కుటుంబాలకు నాట్స్ ఆర్థికంగా అండగా నిలిచింది.
అందరికీ నా ధన్యవాదములు. ఈ మనీని నా పిల్లల ఎడ్యుకేషన్కి మంచిగా యూజ్ చేస్తానని ప్రామిస్ చేస్తున్నాను.
ఇండియా తెలుగు వాళ్ళు అమెరికాలో ఉన్నట్లు కాదు, మేము అమెరికా తెలుగు వాళ్ళం. మేము డిఫరెంట్. మేము మీకంటే ముందున్నాము సహాయం చేయటంలో. మీకంటే మాకు గొప్ప హృదయం ఉంది అని చెప్పడానికి కోసం నాట్స్ చాలా కృషి చేస్తుంది.
ప్రమాదవశాత్తు తెలుగువారు ప్రాణాలు కోల్పోతే అలాంటి వారి పార్థివ దేహాలను మాతృభూమికి తరలించేందుకు కృషి చేస్తోంది. తెలుగువారికి సాయమే కాదు, వారి కోసం సమరం చేయడంలో కూడా నాట్స్ ది ముందడుగు. ట్రై వ్యాలీ, హెర్కున్ యూనివర్సిటీల్లో తెలుగు విద్యార్థులకు జరిగిన అన్యాయాన్ని ప్రతిఘటించింది, వారి తరఫున పోరాడింది.
నాట్స్ గురించి తెలిసిన తర్వాత వీళ్ళ గురించి కొంచెం రీసెర్చ్ చేస్తే తెలిసి వచ్చింది, ఉన్న వాటిలో వన్ ఆఫ్ ద మోస్ట్ జెన్యూన్ ఆర్గనైజేషన్స్గా పేరు తెచ్చుకున్నారు.
భాషే రమ్యమని నినదించే నాట్స్ తెలుగు భాషకు ఇంటర్నెట్లో NTR, నాట్స్ అనే 2 యూనికోడ్ ఫాంట్లను రూపొందించి తెలుగు జాతికి అంకితం చేసింది. తెలుగు జాతి ప్రత్యేకతలను, తెలుగు ప్రముఖులను ప్రతి నెలా పరిచయం చేస్తూ అక్షర దీపికతో అమ్మ భాషకు అక్షరాభిషేకం చేస్తోంది. ఇమిగ్రేషన్, హెల్త్, వెల్త్ సంబంధిత అంశాల్లో సదస్సులతో నాట్స్ తెలుగు వారికి అవగాహన కల్పిస్తోంది. వ్యక్తిత్వ వికాస సదస్సులతో తెలుగు యువతలో స్ఫూర్తిని నింపుతోంది. అమెరికాలో తీయటి తెలుగు పాటల ప్రవాహం ఈటీవీ పాడుతా తీయగాను దిగ్విజయంగా నిర్వహించడానికి నాట్స్ తన పూర్తి మద్దతు అందించింది. అమెరికా తెలుగు సంఘాల చరిత్రలో తొలిసారిగా తెలుగు నేల నుంచి వచ్చే విద్యార్థుల కోసం నాట్స్ బీమా పథకాన్ని ప్రవేశపెట్టింది.
తెలుగు విద్యార్థుల కోసం ప్రవేశపెట్టిన నాట్స్ లైఫ్ ఇన్సూరెన్స్ పాలసీ నా జీవితంలో మర్చిపోలేనిది. నేను చైర్మన్గా ఉన్న సమయంలో ఇలాంటి పథకాన్ని తీసుకురావడం నా అదృష్టంగానే భావిస్తున్నాను.
ప్రతి ఏటా 1 మిలియన్ ఫుడ్ క్యాన్ డ్రైవ్ పేరుతో నాట్స్ అన్నార్థుల ఆఖరి తెరిచే ప్రయత్నం చేస్తోంది. జన్మభూమి రుణం కొంత తీర్చుకోవాలనే తపనతో నాట్స్ తెలుగునాట శ్రీకాకుళం జిల్లా ఉద్దానం కిడ్నీ బాధితుల కోసం ROC ప్లాంట్లు ఏర్పాటు చేసింది. అనాథ పిల్లలకు అండగా నిలిచే చిన్మయ విజయ, బ్రైట్ లైఫ్ ఫౌండేషన్స్ కు నాట్స్ తన ఆర్థిక మద్దతు అందిస్తోంది. చిత్తూరు జిల్లాలో సేవా వృద్ధాశ్రమానికి సాయం చేస్తోంది. తెలుగునాట వరదలు విపత్తులు సంభవిస్తే బాధితులకు మేమున్నామని ఎప్పుడూ ముందడుగు వేస్తూనే ఉంది. తెలుగు రాష్ట్రాల్లో ప్రభుత్వ బడులకు అండగా నిలవాలనే సంకల్పంతో పాఠశాల దత్తత కార్యక్రమాన్ని నాట్స్ చేపట్టింది. దత్తత తీసుకున్న పాఠశాలల్లో మౌలిక సదుపాయాల కల్పన, పుస్తకాలు, బెంచీలు, విద్యార్థులకు స్కూల్ బ్యాగులు అందించింది. డిజిటల్ లైబ్రరీలు, డిజిటల్ తరగతి గదులు ఏర్పాటు చేస్తోంది.
జన్మభూమి రుణం కొంతైనా తీర్చుకోవాలనే తపన నాకు అమెరికా వచ్చినప్పటి నుంచి ఉండేది. అక్కడ ప్రభుత్వ పాఠశాలలో పిల్లలకి పుస్తకాలు అందజేసినప్పుడు, అలానే డిజిటల్ తరగతులు ఏర్పాటు చేసినప్పుడు ఆ పిల్లల కళ్ళల్లో చూసిన ఆనందాన్ని నేను ఎప్పటికీ మర్చిపోలేను.
శిథిలమవుతున్న ఆలయాలకు కొత్త వెలుగు ఇచ్చేందుకు నాట్స్ సేవ్ టెంపుల్ ఆర్గనైజేషన్తో కలిసి అడుగులు వేస్తోంది. రమణ మహర్షి అంధ విద్యార్థుల పాఠశాలకు ₹1,00,00,000 విరాళమిచ్చి అండగా నిలిచింది. పోలియో బాధితులకు చేయూతనిచ్చేందుకు విజయవాడ రోటరీ క్లబ్తో కలిసి పనిచేస్తోంది. బాలల సంబరాలు, యువ సంబరాలు, క్రీడా సంబరాలు, మహిళా సంబరాలు, తెలుగు సంబరాలు, ఇలా ఏ సంబరమైనా నాట్స్ అద్భుతంగా నిర్వహిస్తోంది.
We also should be proud because other organizations are learning from us and they are following our path.
ఆ గౌతమ బుద్ధుడి సంఘం శరణం గచ్ఛామి అనేది నాట్స్ అనుసరిస్తుంది. ఈ సంఘానికి నేనేమిచ్చాను, ఈ సంఘానికి నేనేం చేయగలను అని ఆలోచించే ఎందరో మహానుభావులను కలుపుకుపోతూ నాట్స్ అడుగులు వేస్తోంది. తెలుగువారి గుండెల్లో సుస్థిర స్థానం సంపాదిస్తోంది. నాట్స్ సాధించిన ఈ విజయం ఏ ఒక్కరిదో కాదు, నాట్స్ తో నడిచిన ప్రతి ఒక్కరిది, నాట్స్ పిలుపుకు స్పందించిన అందరిది.
Okay, I see many of the people. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Prasad Isakapalli, NATS Kansas Chapter Coordinator. A warm welcome to all of you to this wonderful session, Marriage Maintenance Kit. So before we begin, I'd like to invite and acknowledge our NATS executive team, Srihari Mandadi Garu, NATS President, who is available in our Zoom session, Ravi Kiran Garu, NATS Web Secretary, and Murali Medcherla Garu, NATS Executive Committee, and Venkat Mantri Garu, NATS Indian Liaison. So warm welcome to all of you, sir. And now I'd like to warmly welcome our NATS President, Srihari Mandadi Garu, to share few words about NATS and its ongoing programs, so that we can continue our program consequently.
Yeah. Thank you, Prasad Garu and Venkat Mantri Garu for organizing this event. And again, this is Srihari Mandadi, NATS President. And a quick brief about NATS. North America Telugu Society, as you guys saw in the video, the organization was started in 2009 with a few doctors and other prominent people with the motto of service and to preserve the culture. These two are our important tagline. The tagline is Bhasha Ramyam Seve Gamyam, meaning that to preserve our culture, we do a lot of year-long programs, and also we do a lot of service programs. These two, like two eyes, will continue since inception of the organization so far, and successfully year-long we have Mahila Sambaralu to engage the women and with the organization, and we do a lot of cultural programs with Mahila Sambaralu, and also we do have the Badal Sambaralu. We conduct in lot of chapters, and we engage the kids, and we do a lot of competitions in that, and also we do a lot of sports in different chapters. Along with these culture programs, we do a lot of service programs as well, immigration seminar. We have a monthly ongoing sessions. Ask an attorney is every month, fourth Sunday. We are conducting a monthly webinar, and also we have a Ask a CPA. So these account CPA and the immigration are too important for immigrants in this country. So that Ask a CPA is every month first Sunday. We are conducting at 11 p.m. EST. And we also have the Laltikala Vedika program every month, the third Sunday. And we do have yoga sessions. Like that, we are doing these online sessions. Along these online sessions, we do a lot in-person service programs to help the community in all the organization. We do during this Thanksgiving season, we do a food donations in all the local food banks. And this year we are doing 100,000 food cans donation during the Thanksgiving period. So like this, there are a lot of programs are going on. If I keep on saying it's going to take time, I'll stop there. But once again, thank you, Venkat Garu, Prasad Garu, organizing such a very useful program. So the marriage life and marriage maintenance is very important for a successful or a happy life. This is going to definitely useful to the community, I believe. Thank you once again. And thank you, Charles, for accepting this, our NATS invitation. Thank you, Prasad Garu. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Srihari garu. Thank you so much. That was unwavering pride of NATS upholds the noble motto. So, like Srihari garu mentioned, is basically language is our beauty and service is our goal. Bhashe Ramyam Seve Gamyam. That's our profound declaration for the NATS, and that's great. We have been doing so many activities across the United States. Now it's my pleasure to invite the speaker of this session, Mr. Charles Rivers. So as you all can see, his video is on. And today we are honored to have Mr. Charles Rivers with us, an expert with over 30 years of experience in interpersonal relationship psychology. Throughout his distinguished career, Charles has been featured on television and nationally syndicated radio for his deep insights into emotional healing and relationship dynamics.
Please turn on your video, Prasad Garu. Please turn on your video.
Oh, yeah, sure. He has, I don't know. Where is my video? Can you all see me?
Thank you. Yeah.
Perfect. So he has also helped in thousands of individuals and couples to reconnect with themselves and rebuild trust and rediscover joy after experiencing emotional burnout. So as the founder of FILA, Feeling in Love Again, Charles helps people navigate complex emotional challenges with practical strategies, making healing and personal growth accessible to all. So his work centers on self-worth, inner child healing, and then resilience of the human spirit. So Charles brings empathy, authority, and encouragement to every interaction, interaction along with the communities. So please join me welcoming Mr. Charles Rivers. Charles, please enlighten us.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys maybe 45 minutes, and then after that, I'll be open for questioning.
Sure.
When people came to me for years, they really wanted maybe 3 to 4 things. We could be successful in our businesses, in our careers, but it was the balance of being successful at work and successful at home. Because a lot of us, we want to build our careers, and then at a certain time, our spouse may say, I'm not happy. And then what do? So that starts to affect your business, it starts to affect your job, and it affects the children. And so way back in the 1990s, when I completed school and I decided that I was going to help couples, I first had to improve my own marriage. And so, like I was saying to you earlier, I was married for 36 years until my wife died of cancer 2 years ago. So not only do I have the skills in the television and the radio, but I was in an actual marriage. So I know the problems that you face when you're like, what do we do? And most information comes from outside of the home or television, but it won't help you in the home. So I developed a beautiful program that started with my first book. And then the radio station, they invited me to the radio station. And I'll tell you a short story. They said, we would like to have you on. And this is CBS radio. So it's a national radio. And the woman said, she said, you'll be on the air for 5 minutes. That's it. She says, we won't even pay you because ever since the Oprah Winfrey show, we don't pay guests anymore. And so I was on a radio station. People asked questions about their marriage. And I looked at the clock and 10 minutes went by, 15, 20, 45 minutes went by. And then the show was over. So I asked her, I said, I thought I was going to be on air for 5 minutes. She says, yes. She says, but did you see those lights? She says, that was a phone bank. She says, in the studio booth, we have another phone bank. Those lights were lit up. In the controller's office, those lights were lit up. She says, Charles, this is CBS radio. I have never seen that before. She says, we have 2 therapists on a weekly show. I'm going to fire them and give you the job. So that ultimately led to television. But only because I had a different way to help people that helps men and women both. Some guys are afraid to go to therapists because they may think the therapist is female focused. And some women are afraid to go to therapists because they think the therapist is male focused. I'm neither. So in the 45 minutes, if you guys listen, then you could ask questions, but it works immediately. It was designed to work over a 2-hour seminar, but 45 minutes, that's enough time. Okay, so like I said, people come to me because they want their marriage to work well so their business is not affected or their job, that their children are not affected, and that their romantic life is not affected. Those are the main reasons people go to counseling. Some people, one spouse may initiate it during the marriage. Another spouse may initiate it before the person walks out of the door. It doesn't make a difference. So the main reason that there's a problem in marriage, and I've talked to all cultures, I've talked to all races. I've even had a lot of stuff I had to say translated. The main reason is we have 4 different parts of the human nature. But when we meet the person we want to get with, we operate off of the first one. And so what I'm going to do is tell you guys about the 4 Greek loves. Because Greeks have 9 different things they say is love. But 4 of them are for the human spirit. So as I go through, I'm going to relate this to my training. And like I said, not only did I have to learn psychology, but once you learn psychology, you find out, hey, that's half the battle. Psychology really doesn't cover everything. So you have to learn religion of cultures personally. So that's Vishnu, that's Buddha, that's the Bible, that's the Bhagavad Gita, that's the Quran, the Torah, the Tao Te Ching. Because that's what people live. People just don't live in a secular world. that affects their life. So the Greeks, they mentioned the 4 loves that affect all of us way before the Bible, way before a bunch of other religions. And if you don't have all 4, that's where you face marriage problems. So the first one is eros love. So that's like at the bottom. So if your house is made of 4 floors, the bottom floor is eros love. So when we first meet the girl we like or the woman we like her beauty. She may like you in the same way. But that is only the first love. If you don't transcend to each step of those loves over your marriage, then the love will die out. So in eros love also is where we do the career. We say, I've got to make money to take care of my house. And we start taking on chores as a man and women, but after a while, we lose connection because we're doing mechanical relationship, not really a softer relationship. So the next stage in love, remember, eros is the first one. The next stage in love is what you call philia love. So philia, which is in the city Philadelphia, which is a friendship love. So eros, which is the first, is erotic love or romantic love. And philia is the second one. So this is the love that I became successful in my career. Because one day when I was at home, my wife, she was in her bathtub. I was in another bathroom in a bathtub. And I was laying there. I tried to find out, I said, why is it that men and women can't get along? And then it came to me immediately. I say, that's it. It's friendship. Males don't treat their wives like friends, and women don't treat their husbands like friends. So part of the first book that I wrote, on the cover, it says, why is it that a marriage, it says, why is it that a friendship can last 20 years or more, but a marriage is hard pressed to last barely 2? So do you understand what I'm saying? Why can you have a male friend and you guys been friends 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but in a marriage, after the second year, people want to leave. They want to run. And so that's the question on the cover. Inside of the book, it gives you the method on how to get there. So it answers that for you with another question. And so for all of you guys, I want you to think for a minute. Just think for a minute. Who is your best friend in the world? Whether it's man or female, who's your best friend? Just think on that name for a minute. Because inside of the book, it asks this question, and I want you to ask this of yourself. It says, if my spouse, so that's the person you're married to right now, if my spouse was my best friend in the world, so if your spouse was your friend that you've had for 40 years, would you be able to get away with treating them the way you do now, or would you have to change? So I'll say it again. The question inside of my first book, it says, if my spouse, that's your wife, was your best friend in the world, your buddy, would you be able to get away with treating her the way you do now, or would you have to change? And the same thing for women. When I talk to women, I ask them the same question. And the reason my career exploded, because women and men alike, they all said, oh my God, I would have to change. And so my wife was the first one. I knew if I got her and she started out as hard, then I could get anybody. So every time when I asked women, I said, if your husband was your best girlfriend in the world, would you be able to get away with treating him the way you do now? Or would you have to change? And so everybody understands that, wow, I guess my behavior to a friend is different than my behavior to my spouse, which leads to, like I said, the second Greek love, philia love. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think the recording got stopped. RK Garu, can you please look?
Yeah, I will take a look.
Do you want me to continue?
Yeah,
please
1
go ahead.
minute.
Please go ahead.
Just a
Okay, it started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so which leads to the second Greek love, which is philia love. So philia love is friendship love. So for communication to work in your home, you have to be friends with your spouse. Now, so when I found that out myself, I was like, wow, I'm familiar with psychology, but I have to be able to prove this in order to teach it to couples, because I can't just tell couples you have to be friends with your spouse, and that's the solution. So since it was my start, I said, I'm going to search in religion. So I searched the Bible, I searched Vishnu, and I found it said about friendship. It says, Genesis 2:24 says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother, cleave unto his bride, and they shall become one flesh. Now, I'm educated, so the word cleave in that verse means friendship, and that's at the beginning. So I decided that I wasn't a master in that area, so I decided to call a Jewish temple in Baltimore, Maryland, where I lived at the time. And so I asked him to look at the Torah, which preceded the Bible, to see if this word meant friendship. And so he's very distinguished. He says, I'll call you back. Maybe that's not the definition, but I'll let you know. So I didn't expect to hear from him for a couple of weeks. He called me back in 15 minutes and he says, in the Torah, that word is devekut. He says, but it does mean friendship, above and beyond the normal friendship you have with a friend. And so that's where it took off. Because if you want to have a better home, better finances, better children, then once you have friendship with your spouse, if I talk to women the same way, this is the only thing that allows you to go to the next area, and which is storge love. The third one is storge love. So they're all in a row. First is erotic, when you met her. The second one is philia, the friendship. That takes the relationship higher. The next one is storge love, which is a relationship that a man and woman have for their children. So if these things are not in order, then if the couple fights each other and they are not friends, then the children will become the same way. So the order ends up being broken. And one thing that children are designed to do, any culture, is children are the thermometer of a relationship. So this means that if the husband and wife are in disagreement with each other, they will notice that the child is sick at school or sick at home or acting out in school, getting in trouble. And the reason is, like I said, children are a thermometer in a relationship. So when the couple goes at each other, the child gets sick. Once the child is sick, it makes the husband and wife stop bickering with each other and turn towards the child to make sure the child gets well again. So when a child gets well, the child has done its job. It's got the mom and dad to stop focusing on each other and to focus on the bigger picture. So children are a thermometer in life, no matter if your child's in grade school or in high school. The time that they act out or paint their hair, it means there's something wrong and they're getting the attention. They don't even know this, but they're getting the attention off of you back onto a broader picture. So I'll go to the final love and then I go back and explain it. So the last one is agape love. So agape love is the highest. That's the love that God, Vishnu, Jesus, or in any culture has for you, and you're supposed to express to somebody else. So agape love is the highest. Agape love is the only love where you can actually forgive somebody. So when you have couples that meet when they're young in the Eros love, they say, she'll say, I want you to forgive me. There is no forgiveness in the Eros or beginning love because you don't even know how to forgive. If you don't build from Eros to philia to storge and agape, which most older couples, they finally achieve agape love. But if you want a relationship that says till death do you part, it has to transcend from eros or physical, romantic love, to agape love. And one thing about all of these loves, I see a lot of television programs that say that women have emotions and men don't. But this is a fallacy. Both have emotions. Both have all four loves. So sometimes men feel erotic, and sometimes they're closer communicating with their wife. Sometimes they have strong love for their children, and sometimes they have a strong spiritual sense. So all humans go up and down on this chart all day long. So sometimes when you lose your spouse, it's because that person has transitioned to one of those four loves, either erotic, communicative, the children, or higher form, and you are stuck at an opposite direction. So many years ago, when I first started out, and I would poll couples to find out what the problem is, I had two wealthy clients that come in. One was a doctor, and his wife had been a doctor just recently. So he made a very high salary, and she made about half of that salary, but it was very high salary. And so I asked him, I said, what do you think would make you guys a better couple? And I gave them a minute to analyze that question. And they both talked together, and they turned to me and said that they believe that if they made less money, they would have more time to spend together. And I thought that was funny. So they made a lot of money. They thought that if they made less money, they would have more time. So fast forward about a month later, I had another couple in my office when I was counseling, but this time it was different. The wife was a school bus driver and the husband was a janitor. So their salary was more on the lower scale. So I was trying to finish my thesis on this. And so I asked them the same question. I said, take a minute and tell me, what do you think it would take to make you guys a closer, more romantic couple? And they thought about it and they said, if we made more money, we would have more time to spend together. And so that was uniquely funny because the couple who had money thought if they made less money, and a couple who didn't have money thought if they made more money, they would have time together. But problems in relationships are never about money. As a matter of fact, the children that get affected in relationships, they're not in it for the money. So, like I said, the key to making any relationship strong is friendship. The reason that you can be friends with your buddy and a woman can be friends with her girlfriend for 20, 30, 50 years is because friendships start in philia love. That comes after the romantic love. So they don't have to worry about romance. Couples, when they meet, male and female, they meet in an erotic relationship. So if they never transition to a communicative or philia relationship, they will remain in the bottom. Now, a lot of people say that they have different romantic tendencies towards one another. And when it came to me, how can they tell their partner? They can tell them in the philia sense, because philia is where all communication comes in. When you tell your spouse, truly, this is what I like, and this is what I do not like. When you get to the last love, because a lot of people came to me and they said they had problems with adultery, where one person felt betrayed by the other. And the woman said, I can't forgive him. And I knew what to say to her because this was a religious couple. When I first started counseling, I thought I was going to counsel just secular couples or non-religious couples. But I came to find out well over 30 years ago that most divorces in America, globally actually, are by people who have a religious background, whether that's the Buddha, whether that's Christianity, whether that is Judaism. Most couples have a divorce that way. So she told me, she said, she was Christian. She says, he cheated on me. I don't know if I can forgive him. So I had to lean on what I learned about her faith to help her get over that. So I said, ma'am, you say that you're a Christian. I said, most instances in the Bible, it says you must, you should, that sort of thing. I said, when it comes to adultery, which is Moses' law, the only thing that is said is that you may leave this person. It doesn't say, like it says in every other place, that you must, because this one area allows a person's heart to decide what they're going to do, to forgive the person or not. And like I said, most forgiveness comes in the top level. Now, when it came to men, when they came to me for counseling, they were different than the women that came to me for counseling. So mostly men crave respect in a relationship, and most women crave romance or listening or that sort of thing. And so the thing is to let both sides know what excites them. So if men came and they mainly wanted respect from their wife, and most women that came, they said they mainly wanted love or communication. And so I explained to them that actually that love flows downhill and respect flows uphill. That's the difference between leaders and those under the leaders. So if we go back to religion again, no matter which faith, love flows downhill. So take, for example, let's start with the man. If the man loves his wife, that she's under him. The wife is there. So if the mother loves the child is under her. And I don't care if the child has a puppy. So it flows downhill. The only difference is that is required is that respect flows uphill. Now it breaks when there is love downhill, but no respect uphill. So let me give you an example. Like I said, I started my career talking to secular couples, and somehow it morphed, even on secular radio, to religious couples. So I gave the example that if God loves man loves his wife, the wife loves the child, and the child loves the little puppy. So on the way back uphill, if the child does not respect his mom, the mom does not respect her husband, or the guy does not respect the authority above him, the chain ends up being broken. And so both people in a relationship, that's how they end up at counseling. Sure, some guys, when they come to see me, they say things like they wish they had more romance in a relationship. And women say they wish they had more communication in a relationship. And those two things end up being non-starters because they are actually, I explained to you a minute ago, the same way. She does require communication, which starts at the second or philia level of communication. And he does require a respect, just like most men, all men require respect from all of their male friends. That's just how it is. If a man does not have a guy as a friend, that means that person does not respect him. If a female does not have a female friend, that means she has no love, not necessarily respect. Communication, love, sharing, camaraderie, that sort of thing. So the two genders have to be approached from what how they see life. Now, the difference is the 4 loves I just gave you, and this is the easiest way I can give it to you in a short 45 minutes. I can't give you over 30 years of psychology in a short amount of time, but using the same 4 loves, eros, storge, philia, agape. This is what's unique. Those 4 loves are separate. So eros love, we can be romantic with our spouse, a girlfriend, dating anybody. The second one is philia. So you can be a friend with your buddy. Your wife can be a friend with her girlfriend, or you can be friends together. The third is storge love. That's what we love for the child. So we love our child unique from any other child. That's the love that the parents give to the child. And like I said, agape, the last one, which is whatever your culture has as a God, the way you love your God and the way he loves you back. But those are four, or schizophrenic separate. But did you know that marriage, hello, she would take the flowers and she would just put them in a dry vase until they died. And I said, maybe she doesn't like flowers. I said, all women don't like flowers. And so what I did is I had them lay back in a chair. If you've seen traditional counseling where you try to get the person to relax, I said, and you guys can use the same thing too. I said, I want you to relax. I said, I want you to imagine in your bedroom, there's a dresser that you guys share. She shares one side, you the other. I said, now on that dresser, there is an item that she uses every day. Every day she uses an item. It's a personal thing that she likes. I said, I want you to imagine it. I want you to, you could actually reach your hand out and touch. That's what she loves. She constantly purchases that. I said, now open your eyes. I said, what is that item? He says, it's the Skittles. So she loves Skittles candy. A real small thing. It's not flowers. It was a Skittles candy. So I told him, why don't you go out and make a bouquet of Skittles candy and give that to her? And he did. And she enjoyed it. So sometimes when you have a spouse and you're missing the mark, when you're giving them something, all you have to do is imagine what it is that they like. Not what you want to give them, but what it is they like. Now, the reason, like I asked the question, why is it that a friendship can last 20 more years where marriage is hard pressed to last barely 2? I want you to imagine this, that all of your lifelong relationships, even in NATS, all of your lifelong relationships are above the belt. So that means your gym coach, mom, dad, best friend, your sibling. If those relationships are loving, they were all above the belt, or non-central or non-romantic relationships. So mutual long-standing relationships occur mainly at philia or friendship level and above. Now, the reason that some people, I've been asked a question often, some people ask me, they say, well, my spouse stopped trying after we got married. The guy says, my wife, she changed her appearance. She stopped caring. Or the wife comes to me, she says, my husband doesn't buy me things anymore. He's not romantic anymore. He doesn't do things for anymore. And that is not a simple answer question. I can't say, man, well, he stopped doing that because of this. But in some cases, that's why you come to us for relationship advice, because we're not just talking about the marriage. We're talking about the person's life before they met you. So in psychology, we analyze your life back to childhood, because I have never met any adult with adulthood problems. I've only met adults with childhood problems. And sometimes when the spouse stops trying at relationships or lets themselves go, is because the person actually loves you. And that particular person, their whole life, all they wanted to do was find somebody that loved them. And when they found that person, their journey was over. So they actually quit out on life. So they let themselves go. They stopped making more and more money. And they just put their focus on that person. But that's based on childhood of them not receiving love that they should have as a child. And so when somebody actually did love them, they found what they were looking for, and then they quit out on life. So in these cases, I always tell a person, it's great you found somebody that loves you, but you have to keep going. This childhood issue you have is a separate issue. Now, a lot of people ask, why did I choose this person? This person drives me crazy. Or this person completely opposite of me. And like I said, again, a lot of that stuff goes back to childhood. When we choose our spouse or our mate, we're actually choosing For males, males choose somebody who is similar to their mother subconsciously, because their mother was the first person that loved them for 18 years straight. No romantic relationship. She just loved them, even when you lied to your mom, even when you stole from your mom, even when you skipped school, she still forgave you. So subconsciously, males are looking for a woman just like their mom. Even the beauty of their wife, in some cases, mimics their siblings. So if somebody sees you with your spouse, they may say, are you guys brothers and sisters? So most of us are looking for ourselves, but most people are looking for the opposite of themselves. So you may have one guy who's fastidious or very clean, and he may get married to a woman who's very messy, or vice versa. You may have one person who's good with finances who marries somebody who's horrible with finances. And the reason for that is people are not really as much in love with themselves as they think they are. So some people actually want somebody opposite from themselves, but the only problem comes in is when they marry that person and then they try to convert that person to being themselves. And if you didn't like yourself, now you have two people that are just like you. So I would always have to tell the couples, stay with the person as you found them, because you attracted to opposites. Opposites attract and then they repel. But there's other cases where, based upon our upbringing, because most of us live either for or against our own upbringing. Now, because of that, if we liked our parents, that's for upbringing. If we did not like our parents, we live a life that's against upbringing. So if a man loved his family, he could marry a woman who mirrors his home. But if he did not, he will marry a woman who's opposite, may not be good for him at all. The same way for a woman, she'll marry somebody that may not be good for him at all, because there's a rebellious nature. Because all of us are living either for or against our own upbringing, which means that, like I say again, if you lived for your parents, there's a good indication that you would live close to home. You might work in the same job they did down the street where they worked at. If you lived against your upbringing, there's a good chance that you would move far away from home, maybe a different state, maybe a different country, and you become an entrepreneur and you would do something completely different. So our lives and our relationships reflect how a child feels about what happened as a child. Now, so a lot of times when you try to analyze relationships, and there's a lot of self-help books out there, and I've written many myself. And if you read them just flat and you know nothing about psychology, you could actually misuse the information. I had this couple came to me one time. They had been married for 9 years, and they had just had a baby. So both were working like crazy, trying to make a career. They just had a baby. And the woman, she heard me on the radio, and she said, she called my office. She says, I heard you on the radio this morning, and everybody tells me that if you can't solve our marriage problems, then it cannot be solved. And people would always say this. It's like, wow, that's a lot of pressure. They said, she says, I'm going to get a divorce. And I said, okay, man, what's the problem? She says, we just had a baby, a little girl. She says, I'm changing the diapers and everything. My husband's not helping me. It's like raising two children at the same time. She says, if you can't do it, I'm getting a divorce. I said, okay, bring him to my office, and this afternoon we'll talk together. And so instead of my office, I use my conference room. I always put the wife on one side and the husband on the other side. And I let her talk. She talked for 30 minutes. She berated this guy for 30 minutes. And she told about him, and he spoke. And so I'm developing a picture of the relationship. And their problem to me seems nothing about what she's saying. Like I said, if you know no psychology, the problem goes right over your head. So remember, she says that she's married to him 9 years. They just had a child. That's a girl. He's not helped change the diapers. She thinks that he's maybe the old type dad. You do the work. Men don't do that. She's way off. And so I stopped her. No more berating. I said, ma'am, I said, he's going to tell you something he hasn't told you in 9 years. Do you believe that? I already see what the problem is. She does not. You knew him 9 years. I've listened to you 30 minutes, and I can tell you this guy is about to tell you something you haven't heard in 9 years. Do you believe that? She looked at me as if I was crazy. I know him better. What do you mean? So I looked at the guy. I said, tell her. And he wouldn't open his mouth. Now, he was a dark guy. And I said, tell her. But you could see his complexion changing, a blush. You could see he was about to start crying. And I knew it was coming. I said, tell her. So remember, her problem is that he does not help change diapers. So he looked at her. He says, when I was a child, I was touched by my aunt and my niece on several different occasions. And so she did not expect that. These are two women in his life that touched him as a child. And she had her mouth open. I knew that was going to come out. I had seen this same behavior before and what it leads to. And so to understand, I explained to her, I said, ma'am, see, you understand that he did not want to change his daughter's diapers because he thought that that monster that happened to him was going to affect his child. And he started crying. I nudged her under the table to get up and go around and hug him. That way their marriage could start healing. And that's why he resisted having a child for so many years. It does not mean that's going to happen, but a lot of marriage problems have nothing to do with what you think they do. He knew her for 9 years. He would not tell her that. And I've told people in audience and on television, if your spouse thinks that you're the type of person that they cannot talk to, remember, if you miss the communication, philia love, the friendship love, they won't communicate with you. Because, you know, even as a guy, you will tell your male friends things that you won't tell your own spouse. And the female will tell her girlfriend things she won't tell her own spouse. So trust and communication comes in at the philia or friendship level. So like I said, I explained whether on TV, on radio, or seminars in person. If your spouse does not feel that you're the type of person that won't judge them, they will not tell you the truth. And he would have took that to the grave with him and never told her the truth. And so you don't end up having a relationship. So it's basically four, like I said, eros, philia, storge, and agape, and they grow that way. And so if your relationship is broken, maybe you've been eros too long. So some people are too erotic too long for too many years. If it's broken at the top, agape, which is more religious, maybe been religious too long. Those loves are meant to be transitioned up and down, not stuck. So if a relationship is stuck, you're stuck on one level. Now, if you have a problem with not sharing the children together, it's no communication. So one spouse feels that that's my child, even though there's no ownership in children. So for women, like I said, it's communication, the friendship. For men, men must be respected. And like I said, when women came to me and said, my husband doesn't buy me flowers anymore. He doesn't buy me gifts. I said, ma'am, men operate off of respect only. The day you stop respecting him as a person, they will pay only what they have to. That's the bills, that's the mortgage, that sort of thing. That's why when you first met him, you respected him. That type of love, he bought you everything until he almost went bankrupt. And then after you lost respect, he paid only what he had to. The same with women. When a guy first meets a woman, he does all that stuff for her in a romantic sense. And the moment he stops, which is her form of love, she starts withholding affection and romance. It's an automatic key. It's not a game. It's not something that she's trying to do to hurt you. It's just that's the key. The same key that we use to get in a relationship is the same key that we surrender, because you have to have friendship for it to go up higher. So, like I say, a lot of people think about divorce. Some at the second year of marriage, some at the seventh year. Some people may get 15 years. Some people may want to get divorced every year. But if divorce was the answer, what was the question? Because if you do that, in America, 50% of first divorces end in divorce, marriages end in divorce. Those are opposite nature people. Second marriage, almost 70% end in divorce. The second marriage, most people marry somebody who's just like them. That marriage collapses quicker because people, like I say, they are not in love with themselves. The third marriage ends well over 89%, and that's people, they're just indifferent. So the main thing I would always tell people is to stop listening to your friends who have no background. Stop listening to this shows like Oprah Winfrey or other ones that tell you to get a divorce, because it is about death do you part. Somebody being there when you pass, and your children. And when people came to me, they said, our child's going to be a doctor, or our child's going to be a professional. I said, I'm sorry to tell you, but if you guys have no communication and they watch you argue behind closed doors, that's not going to happen. Children do what you do. They don't do what you say. And this wise doctor that taught me in school, she says, Charles, children are not in it for the money. So when children are born, they don't care about money. You could buy a child a gift and they'll play with the box that the gift came in. They're not into money. We teach them that. She said, B, we punish, spank our children for what we do. She says, so if you curse, you hit your child for cursing. If you lie, you punish your child for lying. So in effect, it's easy to change your home once you find out that you live in a certain pattern that most of us fall into. There's no class on how to love somebody after you're married. And a lot of us come from wounded backgrounds where we wouldn't know how to love anybody if we could. Because some people never had the experience of having, remember I said storge love in the Greek? Storge love is the love that a mother and dad have for the child. So if the mother and father can't stand each other, they can't pass that to the child. And so once the child gets married, all they know is erotic love. And so it's hard for them to love somebody. It grates against them. I can't do it. I want to love you, but I can't do it. And so that's why I used in my course friendship, because it was easy. It was easy to tell a woman, I said, do you go to buy your girlfriend coffee at work? She says, yeah, I go. And I said, how many creams she has? She said she had 3 creams and 1 splash of chocolate. I said, what kind of coffee does your husband like? She said, I don't know. So it's so much easier for us to love friendship. See, friendship is not because they're the same gender. It's because they're operating only off of friendship. That's it. That's the only key. I had one woman, she came to me. Well, actually, the guy came first. He came to my office one afternoon. He says, I don't know if you know me. He says, I'm a television minister. So now this guy was above what I'm doing. He says, I'm a television minister. He says, so whatever we talk about can't leave this room. And so I've used this story for years, but I don't give his name. And he says, my wife has moved out of our bedroom. She's down the hallway in our daughter's room. She says, we could stay in the same house, but we're not married that way anymore. He said, can you do something? He says, everybody tells me if you can't fix it, it can't be fixed. I said, okay. Can you send her here? He says, yeah, she'll come cross-armed. She don't trust guys. I said, okay, I've had tougher cases. And so I learned from counseling that it's easy to catch a guy. You catch a guy in one sentence. Women were different when I talked to them, because women are 20 steps ahead of what you asked them in a question. So I had to learn to get better. I had to learn to get 20 steps ahead when I asked a question. So I went around with this woman for a short time, but she is the minister's wife. So once again, I had to turn the relationship back from a secular counseling to a religious counseling. I said, ma'am, let's do something different. I said, you know about the four loves, Eros, Philia, Storge, and Agape. She said, yeah, I think I know an Agape one. I said, well, Agape is the highest love. That's the love you have for God. I said, do you love God? She says, yes. I said, ma'am, if you do, there is no way you could have your arms, and I stood under my light at my office. I said, there's no way you could put your arms in the air and say, I love you, God, and then turn with those same arms to your husband and say, I have no love left for you. And with that, she took off out of my office crying, and I didn't see her. 2 days later, her husband came. I said, I'm sorry, I must have failed your wife. He said, no. He said, I don't know what you said to her. She moved back into our room, and he said, everything's fine now. But she knew, if you knew those loves and you said you love God, if you learn agape love, you can break off friendship. Those things are under that. There's no way you can say, I love you, God, and then say, I have no love left for a human being, because that's a bad example. So anytime you have a problem in a relationship, all you have to do is lean on the same thing you would with a friend. So if two guys are driving, I'm driving my buddy in the car, he's got his foot on my dashboard. I don't say anything. But if I'm driving my wife, she has her foot on my dashboard, I say, hey, take your foot off my dashboard. So I learn to treat them different based on relationship. So at this point, I give you guys the chance to ask any questions. What questions do you have of me? Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Questions? Oh, you can't get the voice?
Yeah, now it is, yeah, unmuted. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Right now, I don't have any questions, but that's what I was about to ask others. Like, are
Yeah,
there any
Venkat Garu,
questions?
there were few questions I gathered from different chats.
Okay,
I
please.
posted
go
in
ahead.
the chat. So can you please read through that for Charles?
Okay. Yeah, the first one is, what does maintenance really mean in context of marriage?
What does friendship mean in context of marriage?
No, what is maintenance?
Okay, the maintenance is some people have a relationship that is small problems. So when they're young, they have small problems between a man and woman. Some in the middle time you're married, maybe 15 years, you have some medium, heavy financial bankruptcy, that sort of thing. And then some people further down the road, they have major problems. So the maintenance is how do you have problems and how do we address those problems? Because everybody does not have the same problems. Young people don't see flaws, but older people, it's a different deal.
Okay, thank you. And the second question, which it mentions, like, in today's world of constant exposure and temptations, how do you advise couples, especially men or women, who finds themselves drawn to younger individuals or external attention? And what
Okay,
are
that's
the healthy ways? Yeah, sorry. It's a little bit more. And what are the healthy ways to redirect energy and protect the marriage bond?
okay. That is easy. That's erotic love, and what happens is erotic love or sensual or sexual love and other people outside of the home. The reason is that when couples get together, first they are romantic, first they are erotic, and then they grow bored. And that's when people outside of the home try to pull your attention away. There's people who are single, they know you're married. And if you're married, they know that you're having problems. So it's easier to get a married person than it is a single person. And some people actually target married people thinking that they're cleaner and they're more financially secured. So the thing of it is, if you have communication, remember I told you at the FLIA level, you won't have that outside external problem, because if you can communicate, when you first were romantic and sensual, when you first married, there was a certain routine you had. Then after a while, that becomes boring. But the husband doesn't say that, the wife doesn't say that. But if you had communication, she could say, I actually like it this way. He could say, I actually like it that way. So everything is hinged upon the philia or friendship part. If you were friends, you'd have communication. So there's nothing erotic outside of the home that you couldn't get in the home. Remember, all four loves are in marriage. So eros or erotic or sensual is the first key to marriage. It's not because you don't have consensual relationships anymore. It's because you don't communicate anymore and you get too stubborn. I don't want to tell her this. I don't want her to think that I'm nasty. And so a stranger, when people are strangers, they don't care. But the difference is that when somebody cheats with your spouse is the same person you thought was boring. They're just communicating with the stranger. When a husband goes to somebody else, all he's doing is communicating with a new woman. So it's not the central part is missing, it's communication. You can't go up to a stranger and invite him to bed. No. When a woman sees a guy has a bad home and she's single at work, she targets that guy. I'm going to go to bed with that guy and I may marry him to get his money. So she targets that guy. All she has to do is talk to him for a while, communicate, be his friend. He interprets that as she loves me, not she's sensual. So males fall in love too, not just sensually. And so she knows what to do. The same way with a guy. If a woman is outside of the home, he sees she has a problem, he starts playing into the romantic and communication part. And he knows after a while, she'll relent. She says, he cares for me. So I put it this way. When my first seminar way back in the 90s, I asked the class, I said, what would you have to do in a new relationship if you got out of the relationship today? The smallest woman stood up. She says, you would have to do everything you refuse to do in your current relationship. She was right. So it's not that somebody can pull your spouse's attention away. It's not a central thing. Eros love is the lowest love. Erotic love, on that chart of 4, Eros is very low. It's a trash love. Eros you can do with your spouse or half the planet or by yourself. So it's a low love. Nobody has ever died because they didn't have Eros love. They died because they didn't have the last 3. So if you don't move to communication, they can come along. But with communication, your spouse will tell them, hey, I have a real marriage. I don't need that. I can get that at home. So remember, it's not the central relationship that's broken. It's not that. If you had communication, she would tell you, can we change it up in the bedroom? He would say, can we do this? And you would think nasty of me. So what happens behind closed doors can stay behind closed doors. And even in the culture, the Kama Sutra was made in the culture. So even when I talk to religious audiences, they always had this shyness about it, or this is wrong or this is nasty. If you keep that mentality, somebody will come along, but they won't come along for sensual. They have to fool your spouse with communication and relationship first. Okay, give me another question.
Yeah, the next one is like, what role does forgiveness play in long-term relationship health?
Okay, so forgiveness is at the agape, it's the highest. Now, this is very important. That's a good question. And I'll tell you a small story real quick. When people came to me, I explained to them that in this life, globally, you are given two forgivenesses. So when you were a child, real small boy or girl, somebody may have took your toy or ate your candy, and you said, I forgive you. That's what children do. That's the first forgiveness. After that day, life gives you a unique forgiveness. So it gave the boy who was touched by his aunt. It may have given somebody who grew up in poverty. It may have given somebody who was abused by their parents. This forgiveness, most people will not do it to the grave. And the reason that they can't forgive their spouse is because they never learned how to forgive. So if you hold a grudge for your mom for 30 years and you're married to me for 2 weeks, it's going to be hard to forgive me because you haven't forgiven your mom for 30 years. So forgiveness is at the agape level. If you can forgive, and I broke it down, forgive. For means in advance, you forgive them. It's a gift, give. You are not capable of forgiving them, and they are not capable of receiving that, but you're doing it in advance. You're letting them go. So yeah, forgiveness is a gift. It's something that you have never learned. It has nothing to do with your spouse. Most people have not forgiven somebody past 9 years old. And so that has nothing to do with their spouse. The muscle is atrophy. They just never learn how to forgive. It's nothing to do with the spouse. So it's all about you. Life is asking you, forgive. It gave you that situation. You were let down by your spouse. Oh, you let me down. I can't believe it. Now, can you forgive? You see? Can't run from relationship. Forgive. Okay, give me another one.
Yeah. It is another one like is what are effective ways to de-escalate arguments before they become damaging?
Okay, that's very good. I used to always tell people when they came to see me, I said, most people are deaf because if you get a husband and a wife in counseling, they get louder and louder. Humans get loud when they don't think that you hear them. So this goes back to the philia love or communication. So human nature, when you don't listen to somebody, they raise their voice until they're screaming, and then the police are involved, then the job is involved, and now you're fired. So the person is asking you, and they have been asking you for years, do you hear me? Now, that's when if a woman is mad, she goes away, calls her girlfriend, says, you believe what he said to me? The guy goes to his buddy, like, you believe what she says to me? And they listen. You see, your friends, they listen. And so you're not screaming at your friend. So we scream at enemies. So either you become your wife's best friend or husband's best friend, or you become the enemy. We only scream at enemies. So, like I said, all of this is not about the spouse. It's about us. What has happened to us? So since childhood, we have started in a perfect place and we ventured away. Now, real quick for next answer, I gave you the 4 loves: Eros, Philia, Storge, and Agape. So we are born, little babies are born in agape love. Beautiful, innocent, nothing wrong. As they get older, they fall into a more friendship love. I mean, they fall into their Storge love. They love their mom and dad. Then they go out to love their friends. And finally, when they're 18, they go love somebody sensually or erotically, romantically. So we fall to the lowest in us. And before we die, it's our job to go back to the top. So that's where forgiveness exists at the top. It doesn't exist at the bottom. There's no forgiveness in erotic love. So if forgiveness does not exist in your home, there's no agape love in your home. Okay, give me another one.
Yeah. And this next one is similar to what we discussed, but then this one is how can couple navigate cultural expectations or family pressures?
Okay. Cultural expectations are beautiful because when you're a young person, you think, oh, this cultural thing, my parents have to pick my spouse. They tell where I go with my faith. I have to wear this on my head. I have to wear this dress. Why can't I do what I want to do? But ultimately, those things, those systems were put in place for a reason, because when you're young, you think it's an insult. It's bothering me. But when you're older, without that community, you have nothing. You see? So you need that community, just like in NATS. It's the community that helps you. And so when you're an older person, if you had rebelled and fought the whole time, then you don't have any of that stuff. So that helps you, like NATS, get a community. What you do in your house, that's your business. So you can enjoy your culture, and then there's a private thing you do in your house, but you're honoring your culture and honoring your relationships. So I understand that even in the culture where you have Vishnu, where he says that a wife should respect her husband, and that a husband should love his wife. So he's saying the same thing that you have in the Torah and in the Bible. And those things that are passed down in the culture that in modern days, some women may find is against what they want. And so you can tell them this example. I had a woman come to me, she says that, well, this is liberation now, and we should not have to do what those men want us to do. So that's fine. That's fine. That's what she said. But she didn't understand there is no such thing as liberation. I explained, ma'am, if you say that you don't want to cook for your family. I said, where do you work at? She said, I work at a restaurant. I said, how many meals do you cook a day? She says, about 300. I said, ma'am, you're cooking 300 meals and you didn't want to cook one. So if you had a woman that said she didn't want to clean, she's cleaning at a hotel 100 rooms a day. You see? For the woman who didn't want to make coffee for her husband, she works at Starbucks, 2,000 cups a day. So there's no such thing as that liberation. It doesn't exist. More the punishment is, if I don't want to do it for one person, now I will do it for 1,000 people. So it was a trick. They played a trick on it. And the same thing for a husband. Guys would say, I don't want to take care of her. This should be my money. It's not long-range thinking, because you will die alone. And so a lot of things that Western culture are infecting other beautiful cultures, like the Indian tradition, like the Chinese tradition, almost 5,000 years with these concepts. But culture is not a concept. Culture is thousands of years strong, shouldn't be changed for 1 year or how you feel when you're young. So you might want to find out where your culture comes from before you just outright dismiss it, because it won't be there for you later on. And a lot of modern day progressive culture is not long range. It will not be there for you.
Okay, thank you. And there are so many other questions, but we'll go faster. What advice do you have for balancing parenting and partnership?
Okay, so parenting and partnership. A lot of people used to rub them wrong, but the child is second. The spouse is first. So some people have it backwards. They think the child is first. So the parents came before the child, and once the child's grown and gone away, the parents will be back together again. So they have to maintain love for each other very strong, because once they do, they teach the child to love your spouse. But if the spouse don't love each other strongly, they will teach their child love only children. So when they get married, they won't love the spouse. They'll take care of the child. So the balance is that you love each other. The child is third. The child comes along. So they get a chance to view. This is a classroom. And most of us have been damaged by 18 years in our parents' classroom. So the longest career you ever had school is not a doctorate in college. It's 18 years at home. Go ahead.
Yeah. And the next one is like, are there any surprising insights or stories from your research?
Surprises?
Surprising insights.
Oh yeah, surprising insights. That
Or
men
stories.
and women, well, men and women are exactly the same. So I had women that told me, they said, he doesn't cook. I said, ma'am, when you met him, was he starving? I said, men cook. I said, when you marry them, they may give up those things because they agreed to take the workload, and they allowed you to do that because they're protecting you. And same way when a woman marries a guy, he has to lift the boxes. She lifted the boxes before she met you, but she gives us some of those loads. So marriage is really cute. When you look at it that way, it's not as tough if you remain to see it in a cute way. Yeah, I had a lot of funny insights, but most of them are, I'll put it to you in this last story. This is a true story. Dr. Robert Schuller, who was a national TV minister, he died a few years back, but he used to always go from the East Coast to the West Coast on a plane. It's a true story. He says, I was flying back to California. He said the seatmate beside me, he was reading a book on mathematics. And so Dr. Schuller says, wow, every time I meet somebody, I try to incorporate what I know with what they know. He says, you're a mathematics major? He says, wouldn't you say that 5 + 5 is 10, whether you're a negative thinking person or whether you're a positive thinking person? The seatmate looked at him and he says, Dr. Schuller, that's not true. He says, let me tell you my story. He said, it was well over 70 years ago. The Great Depression was on back then. He says, there was no jobs to be found. He said, we, the graduating class, knew that when we graduated, we'd be in soup lines. There was no jobs to be had. He said, but there was a rumor that whoever made the highest on the last test would become the assistant to the professor. He says, Dr. Schuller, I wanted that job. I didn't want to be in a soup line. He says, so I studied for the test. He said, I studied and I studied. I studied and I studied so much that when it came the time to take the test, I was late. Most of the class had already left. And so I got there. On the paper, there were so many questions. And then on the board, there were 3 additional questions. Now, this is advanced mathematics. So one question, it will encircle an entire room in mathematics. It will circle the board's entire room. It's very difficult to solve. So he said, I turned in a paper. I went to my professor. I said, Professor, can I have more time for these questions on the board? He says, okay, George, I give you to Saturday, no later. Now, the professor knew he couldn't cheat because there's no way you can just cheat on these things. With a group of people, you can't cheat. So George goes home. He worked on it Monday. He said, I couldn't solve it. He says, Tuesday, I couldn't solve it. He says, Wednesday, I solved 1, and then the other 2. He says, Friday, I went to my professor's office. He wasn't there. I put the paper down. I left. He says, Saturday morning, Dr. Schuller, this is history. I heard a knock on my door. I looked out the peephole. There was my professor. He looked disheveled. I opened the door. I said, Professor, what's wrong? He says, George, you were late for my class, weren't you? He said, yeah, I'm sorry. He says, don't apologize. He says, I talked to the class. I told the class that there's 7 problems on the paper to solve. He says, I'll put an additional 3 problems on this boards. He says, you could work on those problems over your lifetime if you want. You'll never solve them. He says, George, Einstein couldn't solve these 3 problems. He says, George, you solved them all. And I'm here to tell you, Monday morning, you have a job as my assistant professor. And I tell you this story to tell you this. George was late. So just like marriage, he wasn't there to hear people say, you can't do this. Einstein couldn't solve it. He missed that part. He just thought you had to solve it. And so when I talk to couples, I say, you were on time for class when you were a child. Marriage doesn't work. Take care of yourself. She'll take your money. He'll take your love. Run if you have to. Get it. You were on time for that. All of that's a lie. It's not even true. So when I taught him, it was my job to take out that mess. Marriage is individual. Your marriage and your home has nothing to do with another home. It's different. So there's no such thing as a group television program that says all men should do this or all women should do that, because your home is individual. Your children are individual. You know your children. You know when they're prosperous and when they're messed up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you offer any group discounts or non-profit bundles for organizations like NATS?
Yeah, always. Yeah, my whole career, from where I went from the books to the radio to the TV, was only to help people and to save them money, because therapy can last 10 years. By the time you're finished, the therapist has a boat. He has a yacht. You're out of money, you're broke. He has a yacht. So that was not my deal. I just wanted to help people because the solution isn't everybody. Everybody has friendship. I said, ma'am, you don't need me. All you have to do is do what you do with your girlfriend, with your husband. I don't mean the nail painting and stuff like that. I mean, love him the way you love her. That's it. Don't change. Don't be schizophrenic. Don't be one way with her, then change with him. So it works for both genders.
Yeah, and there are last two questions. Like one is, how do you recommend couples use your books? Like, for example, individually or together, they need to study together.
Well, they can do it. Well, they can do it individually, but they'll both come back and say, "Oh, this is our problem." So, like now, the book I have is "Can Your Inner Child Come Out and Play?" And that was because, like I said, most of our problems come from childhood. So, a lot of problems you have with your wife it's not about marriage; it's about childhood. It's nothing to do with her. It's nothing to do with him.
Okay, and the last one is like basically, is there any preferred platform to purchase your books?
Yeah, you can go to Amazon. Like I say, I would suggest the book Can Your Inner Child Come Out and Play? That's a good start because most problems with relationships start because where we came from, not from where we are.
I think those are the main ones. Thank you, Charles, for your
Thank you very
time.
much.
It went a little bit over, but are there any other things which we need to discuss or?
Yeah. So when you if you want to fix your relationship, male or female, when you finish listening here, just go to your spouse and ask them that question. If my spouse was my best friend in the world right now, would I be able to get away with treating them the way I do? Or would I have to change? So that your buddy, he wouldn't tolerate the way you treat your spouse. And her girlfriend would not tolerate the way she treats you. And so that makes the person change. So I'm trying to get the woman to change herself and the man to change himself. Don't try to change each other. Just change yourself. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining today's seminar. And if there are any other questions, please contact me. I will give Charles' number to anybody who is interested for therapy sessions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you.